I believe the state was not completely truthful with the judge.
In early January, Judge Neil Nielsen ordered the placement of Jeffrey Levasseur in the town of Blackwell. Levasseur was found guilty of first-degree sexual assault of a child in 1995. Blackwell thought it had time to respond.
The notice said we had until February 14th to respond. Well, the first week of January, the state went into court and in front of the judge said, we haven't heard from Blackwell, Judge, so we think you should go ahead and order this placement.
Bill Schwartz owns a home in the Bear Lake Shores neighborhood, the same neighborhood that the state is trying to place Levasseur in.
I believe that the judge, was going on information that he had, and he entered his order based on what he knew.
Special Prosecutor Kevin Green says the reason the judge wouldn't enforce the order yet was to give the town their say.
Both attorneys agreed that the time had not run and that the plan would not be put into effect until after that time period to give the township and the county the full allotment of time to respond.
The Department of Health Services, which is responsible for the placement of sex offenders, said in an email that a lease had been signed for the Blackwell home, and it would pay the landlord $2,500 a month to house Levasseur. But the realty company trying to purchase the property hasn't closed the deal yet. Schwartz believes the sellers are trying to terminate the contract.
Right now, the sellers do not want to sell to this buyer.
If the contract is terminated, the DHS would have to try to find a property available for rent that meets all the criteria. If a property can't be found,
Mr. Levasseur would have the option of then asking to simply be discharged. He would be then released with very few restrictions versus supervised release, which has a number of restrictions.
If the deal went through, the neighborhood association argues the buyer couldn't use the home to house sex offenders.
We have a covenant here that says you can't rent and you can't use this for commercial purposes.
Schwartz says the neighborhood association would likely sue the buyer to enforce its neighborhood rules on renters, should the placement go through. But he would prefer the situation not go that far.
We're hoping that the judge shortcuts all this, has a hearing, and just says, this placement is not a good idea.
We are covering the news in Forest County. Dakota Sherrick, Newswatch 12.